Okay, gallery
There's a
view.
crowd.
Where am I?
Beautiful people.
Steve.
I missed a week or so. I feel like I need my peeps.
Weren't you just on a call?
I was, John. It was great. I love being on a panel with John.
Oh, I think he's here. I see he told us to kick it off because he was still running. He said he was doing something. So
yeah, we actually were on Omdina it's a community, but it's not like our normal community. They work for NGOs or they provide data science projects for NGOs, and they only have maybe 1,600 people that they pull together in teams. But it's like they presented a couple of their cases, and it's amazing. Like their people are just doing some amazing stuff that are changing the world. So it was really kind of fun to kind
of Steve
crowd. I know, John, I'm talking about our deal. It was cool.
I know. It was great. Yeah, really, really cool to see. Thanks for, I don't know how I got involved in it, but I'm sure you had something to do with it. So thanks. What a crazy morning. I had another session with Oren and NetShrit. They had a webinar like for an hour and a half right before the last one we were on. So kind of feeling 3 in a row. I'm sitting down today, so sorry if I seem to be out of it. So
how are you feeling, John?
I'm feeling better, thanks. Yeah, I had a good I had a good quarantine in the desert, and I don't know, I didn't get affected too badly. I didn't lose my taste or smell or anything, so I got super lucky there. And
I can't believe you had COVID during the summit.
I know, it was crazy. I know. I got like on Monday, the start of the summit, before our cocktail hour, I actually went and got a test because I wasn't quite sure. And I was like, it was so atypical, right? I felt fine during the summit, but as soon as the summit was over every day, I was just kind of totally not a lot of energy. And so I was like, I wonder what's going on. So and I wasn't that worried about it because I saw my doctor the day after I got my COVID test. Even though I didn't have the results, I had gotten this vaccine for shingles, and he swore, he was like, oh, that's a bad reaction to the vaccine. Your lungs are clear and everything's good. So anyway, a bit of a misdiagnosis. So I survived, and my wife had it as well, which was, she had a little bit more than I did, but not much. But I think the reality is that any of us that have kids are completely naive if we think that we're going to be able to avoid it, because it seems like, kids are so asymptomatic, right? They're just kind of doing their thing and not, they don't even know they have it. Something that a 16-year-old, might feel a little blasé, kind of makes us fatigued and, kill our parents. So what a strange time for sure we're living in. So yeah, hey, thanks for everybody for being here. I'm, as you can see, I'm usually standing, but I'm sitting down today. I just kind of, after the last few sessions, it's kind of good to sit, but great to see everybody. A couple of things to start with. First of all, thanks, Oren, for getting me involved in your session. I thought it was really great to talk about some of the ways we can build communities, and they used some really cool technology this morning to build that. Really awesome. And Steve, thanks for getting me involved in the Omdina thing. It's, man, super interesting projects on, some big global problems, especially that trash problem was pretty amazing. So really enjoy it. Hey, I'd love to just let's kick off and do our little breakout and get, see how everybody's doing. So look forward to seeing you guys, and we'll see the whole group on the other side.
All right, here we go.
Now getting punted out.
Yep. We're all coming back now.
Hey, Terry, how are you?
Excellent.
I was thinking about you, Terry. I gave a little kickoff to the Calgary Chamber of Commerce meeting last week.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that in your weekly that you were doing that. So.
Yeah, kind of. If I would have been in Calgary, I would have definitely looked you up and.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Calgary is such an amazing place.
Friend, how many Canadians do we have? Because it just seems like you guys are everywhere.
I think Canadians really control the world, right?
I think
it's because John is such a nice.
I think because John is such a nice person,
plan.
he kind of attracts all the Canadians.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I was a Canadian citizen, for sure. For sure.
Steve, it's just part.
That might change drastically next Tuesday. We'll see what happens.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Ty Montague, 2 new knees, dude.
John Windsor.
I can't believe you're back, man. It's great to see you. How are your knees feeling?
And it's good to see you back.
Good. Yeah, they're not. They're not brand new knees, but they're definitely repaired, and I'm well on the way to recovery, which is fantastic.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I missed you. So last year,
Same.
Ty and I went to the desert to this epic ride, which was kind of, it was over the top. And then this year, I missed him out there. Although, if you would have been with me, I would have given you COVID. So, so you're probably glad that you didn't join me this year.
How was it?
It was good. It was good. I got COVID, right? Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. I found out I had COVID when I was in the middle of that same campground. I was hanging out in that campground, and I got a note from my doctor. It said, "Hey, you're COVID positive." So
wow.
Yeah, so I was hanging out there. I did end up riding a couple 100 miles over the 4 days as I quarantined, but
as one does when they have COVID. Of
yeah,
course.
exactly. Like when you're out by yourself and nothing else to do. It's either sit in my van and talk to myself, or sit on my bike and talk to myself. So I decided sitting on the bike.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, we will do it again. Well, I'm glad to see you back into the community.
Thank you. Yeah, I've missed it. But it's good to be here.
Yeah, there's been lots going on. So much great stuff. Well, hey, I wasn't on last week, obviously, because I had that speech. But man, I just want to, first of all, I want to just say how grateful I am to the community for this amazing summit that we had. So thanks so much for being involved, and really stoked. I think there's a lot of work we need to do at Open Assembly now to kind of get all that information and all the stuff that we accomplished during the summit, those great conversations, kind of downloaded and analyzed and figure out exactly what happened. I think that's one of the great things that's happened. But anyway, thanks. I'm super grateful for this community and all the good energy. Hey, Jen, I see you on the call. I just saw that you put out a new annual report, kind of the annual report for the lab. Any highlights you want to kind of feature?
Yeah, thanks, John. Always good to be here with you guys. There's a whole lot in there. We have about like 60 projects, and then I start about 10 projects a week. So that's just how it rolls around here. But we're largely exploratory, and I was joking about the 10 projects a week. We can't manage that. But I just point you to just read it. It's I'll put it in the chat here. But just awesome. A bit of an overview on what the lab does and so forth. And, our main tracks are crowdsourcing and open innovation, and then data science and AI as well. And there's an intersection here, I think. I think for me, the perspective that I've had and continue to have is a lot of the work, again, as companies are going from analog to digital. There's with automation and prediction becoming more viable, and with data being amassed very, very quickly. I think the work in terms of producing a lot of the different tasks that data science offers and these AI algorithms are going to do, there's going to be a lot of labor and a component of this that I think is going to require quite a bit of open talent. And so we're at the intersection of always studying it, and we have lots of really bright people here who are thinking through things as well. So I just want to just highlight that this is largely a very big team effort here at Lish, and we have some good people. So it's been great. Things that I would say on the horizon still, and we've had some more discussions, and we're in production now about a crowdsourcing course that's going to be coming out. We should be ready to launch hopefully sometime next year, and it's going to be sort of all-encompassing, featuring a lot of data, a lot of studies that we've done, and a lot of the cases that we have. And hopefully it's a tool. It's geared toward someone who wants to sort of manage these practices and bring them into the fold. So And again, in our world, you know, the way we think about it is, you know, contest communities and marketplaces. And it's pretty dynamic. I think we've got, you know, world-class faculty led by Kareem, who's going to be sprinkled throughout all of it and sort of guiding us through, and some guest lectures, some people on this call as well. It's shaping up to be pretty awesome. So I'm really excited about it. And the feedback I keep getting is that, well, there isn't like one piece out there that brings us all together. So this will be absolutely very powerful in sort of both spreading the message, but also teaching people about some of the theory and then also the practical things. Hopefully this will be a large part of our mission of sort of, you know, getting more adoption industry wide. So, but yeah, in terms of the report, check it out. There's a lot there. Some of it's a bit nerdier, some of it, which if you enjoy that, that's pretty cool. Some of it's a bit practical. There's some work that highlights some of the things that John and I have done and so forth in terms of culture as well. So, and then the next version of this in 2021, we're hoping to make it more like a mini site. So it's a bit more dynamic, and then you can click through and ask questions and so forth. So that'll be upcoming, you know, early on next year.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Yeah. Hey, is Greta around? Is she on the call today? No? Okay, cool. Hey, I was going to jump and ask John Healy. John, you sent me that great report on the World Employment Federation and some of the thoughts that there was a position paper on kind of platform workforce. Could you share with us a little bit what because you're the vice president of the organization, and would love to hear kind of from that world what the position paper was all about, and share with the group if you could.
Sure. So high level, the World Employment Confederation is an oversight office headquartered out of Brussels that looks for developing healthy labor markets around the world. There are 50 individual labor markets that have individual federations. They roll up into this one governing body. And so a lot of the work with whether it's the OECD or the International Labor Organization, the ILO, the IOE, in trying to address labor markets at different levels. And you have a lot of the traditional labor market intermediaries, so a lot of the staffing companies who have been kind of the leading members of the organization at a global level, and then even at some of the national levels, actually getting together and starting to take a position in understanding how we need to embrace this open talent marketplace and the idea of platform markets. So where just over the last 18 months, we've gotten the ILO to appoint someone so that anytime they're going to issue a policy at a global level related to labor market intermediaries, they come to this group and ask for an opinion and ask for us to review it beforehand. So starting to get a voice into the market on some things and trying to expand that out. So we actually just issued a release today. We've joined the Velocity Network Foundation as well to really look at how blockchain can change some things here. We're just impressed with the breadth of the partnerships and the collaboration they've brought in on that, similar, John, to what you're doing here in this collective of bringing people together. But they're looking at it across industry, getting anywhere from the SAPs of the world to the Coursera's of the world to come in and join into it, looking at how do we move credentials from one individual to the next and work through that, build out the use cases. So just trying to, as an industry, take a more progressive view in the different ways people connect with work and creating a healthy dynamic that includes these open talent markets.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's important that we're involved in that conversation, and whatever we can do to support your efforts, John. I know you're leading the charge there, but would love to play a supporting role to you and anything we can do to help get the right information
John,
to you or right points of view. Yeah, Balaji.
John, it's interesting to hear the ILO connection, right? After, I know if Greta were here, she'd talk about it. The big database that University of Oxford runs around all of the future of work data, all of the marketplace data. Given the grant of the University of Oxford is expiring, ILO is taking over the ownership of that.
Okay.
So they're actually going to be the owner of all of the marketplace data that resides there. So I think they now have a direct source and ownership of what types of jobs are posted on marketplaces and what types of people exist on it. Eric Stetler and I have spoken about saying and most of those tend to be like the Fivers and the freelancer types of roles, but how do we make that database more universal with all types of high-end and low-end jobs so that, you truly get data on what's happening in the marketplace and make data-driven choices, which is a big gap right now in the system.
So Guy Ryder, the Secretary General there, is someone who is an advocate that we should engage somewhere along the way, in that it was the Fuse event that Adecco hosts. John, you invited people into that just about a month ago, but it was at last year's event that Guy saw how blockchain was being set up with a digital wallet. And he issued the challenge to the industry and said, you need to come together and determine how you can take friction out, because so many people either enter or re-enter the workforce through a labor market intermediary of some sort. And so he has taken a very active stand, and it's an opportunity for us, and particularly in these times right now where the use of contingent, and again, I don't care if that's temporary, it's independent contractors, it's gig, put whatever label you want on it, but non-full-time employees, when there's times of either social or economic unrest, that's when those marketplaces tend to take a much larger position in the market, because they offer corporations the flexibility. And a lot of the established players in the market have also been doing the work to fight for fair rights and safety of that marketplace. So just keep an eye on where partnerships may fit into your own organization, and where you can leverage the strength of a group versus fighting the fight alone.
I think that's great advice. Thanks, John. I think that's great. And in any way we can, as a community, get involved, we'd love to do that. And, I'm talking to you tomorrow, so I'll get the download. I would love to actually, just because you mentioned velocity, but I would love for you just to kind of tell everyone what velocity is and what the paradigm shift is that's going on there.
And so I feel like I'm a commercial today. Apologies for that. You guys don't need to hear my voice this much, but Velocity Network Foundation it's a nonprofit organization that's been created and brought together a coalition of about 100 different members to focus. They're calling it the Internet of Careers. But think of everyone who is a member has access to the Velocity Experience Center, where we're going in and creating use cases to say, this is what we're going to experience. That, John goes to work and he starts out at company A, and then he earns these credentials, and then goes on to company B, and then he earns these credentials and has this experience, and then goes on to company B, C, D simultaneously in gigs. How does John transport that data with him to make it easier to enter into one organization, to ensure that people recognize it, recognizing that from a data privacy perspective, that information will be the property of that individual. So a lot of the stuff Tom O'Malley talked to us about a couple of weeks ago, in the idea of the access to share that information, and I think it was Tom, I apologize if I got the wrong person in there, but the idea of sharing that information at a worker level is what's out there. And again, this is not the labor market intermediaries. It is your training companies. It is your software companies. They're looking at all the standards that the folks from Top Coder have been focused on, and trying to say, what do we need to do in that area to work through things? So it's an organization I would just strongly recommend everyone taking a look at if you're in this space. I know to their members, they will issue their digital wallet in the summer of 2021. Everyone will be given free access to it so that they can use it as a way to kind of get it out there, but it's non-exclusive membership. There's a recognition that there will be multiple blockchains, there will be multiple platforms, but we need standards for things to work between them. So interoperability is a big part of everything that they're looking at in here.
I totally love that. I being on all these different calls and then hearing this, it's just crazy how much great momentum there is around really organizing this, kind of taking it, from the analog world to the digital world and creating these new paradigms, and really a willingness to collaborate cross industry and cross organizations. So that's super, super exciting to me. Hey, I was on, it was such a great thing. I was actually on the breakout with Alistair. Alistair and I were talking, and then obviously we got cut off, and then I got thrown back into another breakout room, and there was Alistair again. So one of the great things, sometimes serendipity really serves well. But one of the things we were talking about was the new, the new future of work, the report that came out from World Economic Forum. Alistair, do you want to kind of, I know you had some perspectives on that, but maybe Brandon, we could put that up in the link. It's a lengthy report, but I think there's some super interesting stuff in there. But Alistair, are you on the call still?
I'm right here with you. Hope you can hear me. So
yeah,
I'm just
any thoughts that you had on some of the thoughts, some of the report?
Yeah, exactly. I think the perspectives that struck me, I didn't read all 170 pages of the thing. I looked at the summary to see what's going on. We're all busy people, but the one thing that did jump out is they have created something called this Reskilling Revolution platform. So why that got me excited is the World Economic Forum is targeting 1 billion lives in the next 10 years, which is something that we brought up last week. And what resonated with me is not a 170-page report, but the outcome. So you can read the report and then we can make a PowerPoint and have a meeting and a conversation, or you can act. And for me, the action that came out of that report is this reskilling world. The way that I found it was I work quite a lot in the artificial intelligence space, and I noticed the intersection between the replacement of between 90 and 100 million jobs around the world in the next decade, and the creation of between 90 and 100 million jobs. But there's also a third dimension, which is the transition of 1 billion people from what you do today to what you'll do in the next decade. And I certainly think there's an awesome opportunity, which is quite exciting, to connect this group of people. We've got 52 people on the call today, and there's a bigger community. I honestly think that there's a great opportunity to say that our massive transformative purpose is also to help 1 billion people. How do we connect with the World Economic Forum? And we are creating something which I believe is a synergy, and it's not a competition. So those are probably the biggest headlines that stood out for me in terms of the outcome, the actions, and how this is so relevant to this community.
That's great, Alistair. Thanks. Any other thoughts? Who else read it? Eric, did you get a chance to read it? I mean, being the economist, you always have a unique point of view. What were your takeaways and thoughts?
So if I could try to distill it down into a few thoughts, it would be technology. I think we can all agree technology does create jobs, and often more and better jobs, as it also replaces some. And often it's not binary, in the sense that it's not so much replacing a specific job, but replacing portions of it, which cause jobs to evolve, but also sometimes transform. So that's the good news. The challenge is that there's a lag between how quickly technology can transform jobs and how quickly people can reskill or upskill to then take advantage of the wonderful new jobs that it's also creating in the process. Also, and this really stood out to me from the report, that gap is getting larger, meaning technology is more quickly, the difference between how quickly technology transforms or replaces jobs is accelerating versus how quickly people can catch up. Probably because technology is so exponential in how it advances. I do think there's a silver lining from the technology standpoint, which is not discussed in the report, but that's that the more powerful technology often gets, ironically, the more natural it often becomes in terms of its use case. So for example, if you look at, to drive a car, when they first came out, you needed to be an auto mechanic. Now anyone can learn to drive automatic transmission. You can learn Python much more quickly than learning some of the older languages that are lower level. So I think that's good news, but it still remains the case that gap is getting larger. Therefore, this brings us to what Alistair was talking about, the urgent need for not just upskilling and reskilling, but constant, but just fundamentally embedding both of those within someone's work, because there is no time to wait for the person to have to stop their prior job and get a new one just because of that growing gap. However, and this also stood out to me, there is a low level of engagement within the upskilling programs that companies are offering to their employees. So basically, companies are beginning to wake up to this, but what they're offering their employees on average for better preparing them for more tech-driven jobs has not seen broad adoption. I think we can debate, what the causes of that might be, but the one final thing I would end with then is, for me, and obviously this is, I'm coming from the point of view of TopTel here, that for me, this demonstrates the need for anyone, no matter if they have a full-time job as well or not, to be able to also explore and develop their skills in what we'll call the gig economy here, in order to learn by doing, which is so critical when it comes to new technologies, because for obvious reasons, so that they are not waiting until the moment when they have to do that, or else they don't have any job at all. I hope that was coherent. It sounded coherent in my head, but 163 pages, trying to distill it down into
no, it's definitely a meaty report for sure. Well, thanks, Eric. Hey, Steve, you made some comments on the chat, but also you and I've had, in the last call we were talking about upskilling, right? And it's been a passion of yours for a long time. Any thoughts? I don't know if you've had a chance to read the report yet, but any thoughts that you have in the context of the conversation?
Yeah, and that report is really very validating for a lot of what this group's been talking about for a long time. I think the one thing on upskilling that has been a real surprise, and I think a lot of you have heard me say it before, is this new opportunity to offer upskilling and offer new learnings in new and novel ways. And I always go, every time I'm talking Paro at the matching a task so that somebody's got to actually work to actually do that in a new, do something new. Just that kind of a feature in your matching algorithm makes a constant upskilling, right? Start putting onto that, goal setting and kind of some of the nudge technologies that we see at Humu and other places, and you start to see opportunities where these platforms that we're talking about, that a lot of you guys run, you have the opportunity to build in upskilling as part of your platform. And if I were to say the one thing that this world needs right now is rapid deployment of upskilling, because the jobs are going to start just dropping. And if we don't get people moving on these platforms and making this part of their life, and the academic, no offense, Jen, I know Harvard's trying on this, but like the academic,
none taken, Steve.
Academic institutions aren't moving fast enough, right? They're still trying to figure out how to make a good Zoom class, and it's like they're missing. There's a huge gap there in terms of the velocity and the speed that all has to happen on this upskilling. And so I would say if you have a platform, consider, how can I make this a learning platform? Maybe it's just connecting to other things or opportunities or building it in, but find a way to put the carrot out there for your crowd members to learn something new, because if we don't provide this, I really do think we've got a lot. And opening that up for the lower end, right? I think that's the other part of this. The lower end is at most risk here. And honestly, there are lots of things that folks that could be doing, like I think data science alone has huge opportunities, because it really doesn't take an advanced degree to get into data science, right? The prerequisite is statistics, right? Go ahead, Balaji.
And I think, the more I think about it, if the case of exponential technology, the way, Eric described it, and Alistair, I agree with you, the business case for AI will always look better for a company to invest in compared to, okay, I'm going to go hire and retrain all of these people constantly. But unfortunately, the culture that we live in is the employer's responsibility to reskill me, versus it's my responsibility to reskill myself, right? I think if there's a way that the marketplaces can take over that responsibility to say, you can get your money there, but we'll give you the ability to reskill yourself in a way I think that unless that transformation happens, you're always going to be the large group of people are always going to be at the mercy of employers to reskill them, where the business case for that is a losing proposition compared to AI.
Yeah, I think that's a really, important point, Balaji. Thanks. Sharon McIntyre had a really good point, in the context of open upskilling, and that, it needs to include cultural, personal identity and social capital and status. I mean, obviously, not only from a worker's perspective, personal identity, is really an important context, but I think we've talked about that a lot in the context of adoption, right? Like, how do we help with these new exponential technologies, including open talent, really affect what's happening. I don't know if, Ty, are you still on? Yeah, you're there. I mean, when I was thinking about personal identity, I was thinking about culture change, and your kind of the book you wrote on story doing, versus storytelling. And, how does, like, if we think about like changing the culture around personal identity, how do we get people to accept exponential change and innovative solutions that threaten their job, right? That threaten their ability to do what you're used to doing, or that take a lot of effort to upskill if you're in the kind of global freelance market. Are any principles that you've thought about that might be able to be applied?
Oh, thanks for asking me the hardest question in the world.
I've been waiting for like 6 weeks to do that, Ty.
No, you've totally pinned me here. So I would just say, in my experience, and in our, we have a growing organ culture practice at Co. Like, you need two things. You need to create a sense of urgency for people, but you also have to create a lighthouse for them to move toward. That people move fastest and best when they have a compelling reason to leave the spot that they're in right now and move toward something really positive. And so we counsel our clients to create a pilot. When first thing we help our clients do is sort of define their higher purpose as a business, and then we want to help them make that real, and we want to help their employees move toward that and embrace it and begin to put it to work in their daily work inside the company. And so we tell clients that you have what the future actually looks like, and that it's not scary, that it's doable, and that there are people inside the company that are already kind of living in that new future. And then you use that kind of lighthouse or that pilot to then infect and infuse and inspire the rest of the organization to come along.
Awesome. That's awesome input. Thanks.
Anybody
else have any thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to share with the gang something we've recently deployed. We've been working off of spreadsheets for a while, but we gigged out sales as a function, and we took a lot of these principles, learning and doing. Is it okay if I share my screen? I'd like to show you how it manifested into a program.
Yeah, totally.
So I'll be brief. If I could be allowed to share my screen. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So what happens is we recruit about, call it 5 people a month into this program, and they come in at a level 0. And just by registering and taking initial steps and showing ambition, they quickly become a level 1. We have them start doing welcome calls to some of our users. And it's something that almost anybody could do, but what it does is it gets them familiar with our value and the type of vibe we have on our platform. And then they move into prospecting with emails and chats. So this idea of learning by doing, rather than stopping and training these people, and then to Ty's point, creating a really smooth and visible path for people to come in and move up. And people love progress. So you got to think of it as a video game, because that's the mentality that a lot of these guys are coming in with, that they expect early tiers to be super easy, and it doesn't have to pay all that much, but they want to be able to blow through it and show progress. So we move folks from level 0 to level 5 in just a week. And they feel really amped that and we do it in batches. So they feel like they're part of a class. And then by the next week, they're ready to sell.
That's awesome.
And they, you know, in the higher tiers, they earn commission, but they also then, you know, we're thinking of creating level 8, which might be a marketing path, you know, and they can stop at a tier and say, I'm fine being a level 4. So I just wanted to share that because we're having a lot of success with it. From a business standpoint, we've blown out our numbers as far as our ability to, you know, cost of sales has come way down. But the energy in this group is a lot of fun. And, you know, we had to build some software to do it, to automate the moving from levels to levels and some workflow to get approvals and whatnot. And we're breaking that off as separate software. But this has been our experience doing what Ty said, taking an example in the business that we can point at and make a successful program out of. And then, yeah, something that we think scales.
That's awesome, Tom. Thanks. I really love it. I love the institutionalization of that. That's awesome.
You should just pivot to sell that, Tom.
Yeah, we're going to
other companies.
Yeah, it's a new company. We're calling it ramped.io. It should be out in a couple of months, but
that's great.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
Salesforce.
Yeah, really cool. Awesome. Well, very cool. Well, that's awesome. Hey, I thought we'd pivot a little bit because we have like 15 minutes left and just have the heads of the working groups talk a little bit about how things are going in the Center for the Transformation of Work. I've had a chance to, just in an overall context, you know, first of all, I got totally inspired by what Alistair said. I think he was in the diversity session at the summit that, you know, that San and Fanny ran from Sidley, which was such a great session. But Alistair kind of put the challenge out there for the group to say, hey, let's transform work for 1 billion people by 2025. And, you know, when Alistair said that and I was on the call, it kind of made me tingle a little bit, right? It's like, wow, that's something I could totally get behind. I think that's pretty cool. And so, you know, in the context of the Center for the Transformation of Work, I want to throw that out there as kind of our, you know, I mean, certainly we have our mission and we have all the stuff, great work we've done, but a simple statement that seems to capture, you know, a North Star, or like Ty said, you know, the lighthouse of where we're going to go and kind of rally all of us together. How do people feel about that? Is that something that's, you know, feels like the right cause in the context of open talent and everything else we're doing?
I mean, I'll impartial, but yeah. I mean, you know, I think one of the first conversations we had as a group was, how do we make this into a movement? And I think it takes statements like that to create a movement. And then obviously it takes ways for us to participate in that, which is what we're developing, but it takes a vision that's that large to create a movement.
Yeah, I totally love that. I think that's right on. I mean, I think that's what we're trying to do for sure. Anybody else have any thoughts about that?
Cool. I think have an objective, right? I think having a target that's aspirational is super important. I know we have a similar sort of goal internally at MBO to do similar, almost the exact same sort of thing. So yeah, I personally have a little bit of connection with that.
Yeah, that's great, Brian. No, I think that's really awesome, and I love the work you guys are doing at MBO, and you know, really focused on, you know, helping entrepreneurs, you know, get out there and do the work they want to do. So great perspective. Well, let's you know, and the other thing is, as I was kind of spending a lot of time thinking during the kind of recovery from COVID, you know, I kept coming back to the organization that seems to be an inspiration for me, and it's the U.S. Green Builders Association. And I think, you know, there's a lot of lessons there. I'd say U.S. Green Builders Council, and there's a lot of lessons there. You know, essentially in 1993, they all came together, and a group of 60 people came together and decided that they wanted to kind of promote green building, and, you know, decided that, you know, maybe one of the ways to do that was through an accreditation mechanism leads. But it took, you know, a few years to get kind of going on that. As I've done some more investigation, there are some things that I think that they do really well. And I just wanted to kind of throw it out there before we kind of dive into the working group reports. One of the things is they really focused on keeping membership very low. So $99 for individuals, $59 for students, inviting the world and, you know, organizations at 450, and then some, you know, charges for organizations for different things, but essentially making it, you know, with the goal of creating the largest community in the world for people who are passionate about green building. And I kind of view that as part of, you know, our vision at the Center for the Transformation of Work. How do we get the largest community that's concerned with the, you know, with the future of work and the open talent economy, you know, together, so we have regular discussions, and we can run, you know, summits like we did. We can have educational opportunities. So that's, to me, one of the things. Like, I need to, Stephanie, you and I need to talk, and maybe you can talk about it a little today. But I think we need to make the ability for people to join. How do you keep the cost really low so the most people can join and be involved in this conversation? The other thing I thought that was super interesting is they have an educational bucket, and they've crowdsourced the educational resources. So they have over 900 pieces of educational material that are all, you know, written to a specific educational goal and agenda, but those are all put up by partners. And I have a feeling, I need to talk to them, but I have a feeling they have some kind of rev share model. The way that their education works is that they have a subscription model. For $199, you can actually subscribe to their educational resources. And then to build on top of that, they have a certification program where it's a 100 question test that you can take. They obviously have been doing it for a long time. So it's, you know, it's the ability to take a test and get different kinds of certifications. I think we could probably start with one, right? Like a open talent manager that would be built off of people using the educational, you know, tools that we already have in existence. But interesting, kind of from a you know, looking at what they do. They also do another thing where they give people badges where people go in and use the educational tools through the subscription. And I think that's another really interesting opportunity. And then lastly, of course, they have the LEED certification, which, you know, Brian's been really awesome at wanting to lead that and think about kind of how do we create accreditation for platforms, so we can get all the platforms talking the same language and creating the right kind of momentum. So those are some of the thoughts. Hey, Chris, Duarte, I know you had something you wanted to kind of share as well.
Thank you, John. A little bit touching on what we did discuss before, and this kind of open, you know, I'm thinking to myself as this moves forward, like I come to these meetings and we talk about what's up here on level 5. And then when I go to work and I work with the community, and I'm down here on like level -9, where they're still trying to understand how to use Zoom, where they're still trying to figure, well, it takes 20 minutes to figure out how to use Zoom before they start a meeting. It's agonizing. And so when I think of this stuff, as we move forward with open sourcing and getting more people on board and getting better at it, is there a way to possibly, I guess, like what you're saying with the education piece, putting like little webinars on or little gaming type of things to where people that are down here at the -9 level can start to play with these tools, can start to use these tools to understand how they work, so they're not so afraid of them as the world is moving so exponentially fast, because they're not catching up. And so as we use open source, I think about the open source possibility in rural communities, rather than hiring somebody, paying them a salary, and then them not working out in 6 months, and you're out there looking for another employee for the next 1 year. And it's taking so much time on those people that wear multiple hats. They're not just running one department, they're running 5. They're doing 5 jobs. And, you know, they don't have the time to hire on more people, so they tend to not want to share the work because of the fact that they're afraid that someone else is going to come along and mess it up. And so we're not getting, in rural communities, we're not getting the highly educated people with master's degrees, and if we did, they want too much money. So I think about the possibilities of open source on how we can use this in rural communities, but we got to bring it down, like, oh, I don't know, 150 notches.
That's a really good point.
I understand 20 years ago. And I think
yeah, thanks for that. I really appreciate that. I think sometimes, you know, when we have a community, it's easy to forget, you know, can't see the forest for the trees, right? And sometimes I think that's one of the things that I feel like I've suffered from in this space, is that we were talking about all the stuff at the very edges of possibility, but yet, you know, kind of helping people get up to speed. And I think, you know, creating a place where anybody can put up any kind of training they want and then get it approved by the community to be a part of the educational process and journey could be a really interesting thing to do. Hey, I know on the, you know, speaking of the education side of things, Mark, you know, you had a great meeting the other day about the education side of stuff. Could you just kind of talk a little bit about where you guys are and what you're thinking?
Sure. Thank you, John. And greetings, everybody from Goa in southern India. I decamped after 7 months of not having been able to leave my suburb in Mumbai. I drove down to Goa. Life is always better by the beach, as they say. We had a fantastic meeting, not only of the group that's kind of been working on the education piece, but we invited representatives from all of the other work streams and had a big, I think there were about 22 of us on Monday, what was my evening, and for some others in the morning. I think we've made really good progress with that. We had some fantastic input, some of which are around the language that we're using. What we're trying to do is to create something and keep it quite simple, but something which other people will be able to contribute to. So the idea is that the other work streams are going to be able to plug into that. We've got a couple of sort of minor changes that need to be made to that. And within the next 24 hours, I will circulate that to whomever is interested in seeing it, certainly to all the other work streams. And I think the opportunity then is to try and, you know, sort of fit these pieces together, if you like, a bit like the sort of jigsaw puzzle. But to your point about the accessibility of it, John, I think, you know, one of the objectives with that education piece is really to open this up so that we're not talking in language which people feel uncomfortable with, but we're using language which is going to be commonly accepted. And I think the next thing that we need to do is to then get that out so that we can get it tested, if you like, with some people from the sort of demand side. So I shall circulate that within the next 24 hours.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I really like that. And one of the things I loved about what Mark and the team has been doing is they have this kind of assessment tool, or the beginnings of an assessment tool with sliders. And I think that's going to be an important thing, right? Is we take people on an educational journey to learn these tools, is like allowing them to kind of self-assess where they are and then what kind of things, you know, what kind of things they need to learn and who they need to connect with. So great stuff. Hey, Brian, I know we're limited on time, but you and I've talked a lot about the accreditation side of things. And I think it's really a key component to this. You know, there's so many platforms out there, and everybody, just because it's been super entrepreneurial, everybody talks a little bit differently about what they do and how they do it. And, you know, so it's really hard for a demand side, you know, person. And Balaji's talked a lot about this, right? Is it selection, or is it really creating more trust for platforms? So any update there?
Well, we've been connecting with a lot of the folks offline, one-on-one. We completed the survey, and the survey gave us a lot of good insights in terms of some of the success metrics we're going to look at. But really, what's becoming very evident are the key kind of components and how it addresses the enterprise needs of the enterprise, the needs of the talent, and curating the needs of the individual resources within them, and then specifically focusing on the nature of the matching algorithm and what defines success. So what has really been an interesting sort of finding has been that the economic value of the repeat engagement, right? A lot of platforms are good at engaging people on a one-on-one discrete transaction, but what we're developing a focus on is really understanding how you repeat, or how you develop that repeat sort of business. And so that's going to translate to some of the algorithm. What we're seeing is a relatively simple initial framework, which is also going to be based very heavily on a lot of the other work that the other teams are doing. So we should be able to have something to consider within the next couple of meetings.
That's great, Brian. Hey, and a shout out to both Brian and Karan. Karan, nice job on the little profile you did of Brian. I thought it was great. People haven't seen it, you know, maybe Karan, you could put it in the chat for LinkedIn. Cool. So anybody else from any of the other work groups? I know we're kind of short on time. Would love to hear from anybody else who's, you know, got some momentum in their group. And I know I've been discussing everything. I've got a to-do list today to get a note out to everybody to get the heads of the working groups together next week and really get a little bit deeper. But, you know, just trying to be patient, realizing that everybody has real jobs, and, you know, really appreciate every piece of energy that people put into this. So, Balaji, you got something?
No, I'm good for now. For today.
You got the little yellow screen around your head. I thought it was you were ready to say
my computer beeped saying it's 10 a.m. So I think that's the reason that.
Cool. Well, let's wrap up. Anybody else have anything? That was great to reconnect with people. Thanks for all your thoughts and wishes in the, as I've recovered from COVID, but lots of good momentum and really appreciate the weekly calls. Love this stuff. Anybody else?
Good to have you back, John.
Thanks, man.
Great to see y'all. Take care.
All right.
Thank you,
all the best.
Take care.
Ciao for now.